Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. The South African Social Security Agency has clarified that grant beneficiaries will be able to continue to apply for the black cards beyond the closing date of the 20th of March. SASSA has also assured grant beneficiaries that they'll also be paid their grants, whether they have converted to the new black cards or not. Postbank CEO Nikki Mbengashe says the rollout aimed at replacing the old SASSA gold cards has seen almost 1 million new cards issued since September. Postbank has been criticised for their handling of the rollout, with Parliament labelling the process as inefficient. All right, now joining us for more on this briefing a bit earlier on is SABC News reporter Dludla. Good afternoon, Calvin. So a very important briefing that we heard today. In 3 days' time, they reached the deadline of the 20th of March for the migration from the gold cards to the black cards. We understand that as it stands, today they revealed that they've reached the 1 million mark insofar as migrating some of those beneficiaries.
Good afternoon to you, Mfundo Mabalani, and to our SABC viewers at home. We attended the media briefing in Pretoria at the GCIS today in Hatfield just to listen to what they were saying. They were updating their beneficiaries about the progress that they have made, as you have mentioned, that they have a deadline on the 20th of March. They are telling us that on the 20th of March, they are urging people now, they are urging their beneficiaries to go and apply because the deadline is looming.
And then what happens beyond the deadline? Because in just that package there, that specific text that I was reading, they've said that, or at least allayed fears, that beyond the 20th, they'll still be able to go and migrate from the gold to black card.
Okay, there's a confusion. People have been asking me about this. I think I need to clarify it here. This is a good platform. On the 20th of March, it's a deadline. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to access your funds. If you still have your gold card, the normal card that people uses, when you withdraw with it in any ATM, you won't be able to access your funds. They told us that if you insert your card, you won't be able to access your funds because it will be blocked.
So how will you access the funds?
You have to go to SASSA, to their payment stations, or do over the counter. That is where you can be able to access your fund. But I have to emphasize, Mfundo, that they told us that it doesn't mean that you won't be able to get your money. Your money will be transferred to your card. The problem is that you won't be able to access it at that time if you are still using the gold card.
But specifically at ATMs. But anywhere else, whether it's their service stations, the post bank, or even at retail stores, you'll be able to access the funds. The problem will just be at the ATMs. And how much has this whole transition cost them thus far? Because I believe they also touched on the costs of all of this.
200 million. That is what they said, 200 million. You'll remember that this process started last year. And on the 7th of February, that is where they announced the deadline of the 20th of March. So after the announcement of the deadline, they told us, Mbengashe told us that that is where people started to come in, and they have programs. They are trying by all means even to reach those people who are living in the rural areas. They are visiting their homes. Even if you are bedridden, if you make arrangements with them, they can be able to assist you. So 200 million, but they told us that they did not overspend, but they underspent.
But have they stuck to this commitment of saying they've been visiting those that are bedridden, etc.? Because we've been reporting on very chaotic service stations at times, where you have the elderly queuing for hours on end, some of them having to go home after that, even still not being registered and coming the next day. Did they perhaps address some of the chaos at some SASSA stations?
Yes, they did. You remember when I was doing the ESCOM story, the recording one, when ESCOM was recording from KNR 1 to KNR 2, most people would say, I didn't know, I didn't understand. That is why, especially when the deadlines are announced. So they only had a minor problem when they announced the deadline, because people started to press the panic buttons and they went to queue, or they went there to their offices just to make sure that they change this card. So that is where they experience an influx of beneficiaries. But they told us that they are managing. They have a backlog. They agreed that they have a backlog of applications, but they are sorting it out.
All right. So what we've been seeing, the chaos, they're attributing to the fact that people started coming closer to the deadline. That's what it was. So they've been open all along, but then it speaks to a communication issue. Are they conceding that perhaps they didn't communicate enough on this transition, or they still comfortable that they communicated? It's just an issue of people who just always leave things to the last minute.
I asked Themba Matlo from SASSA about this. He said that they have been using different methods of communications, newspapers, local stations, press briefings and all of that, but it seems as if people were not hearing what they were saying. But after the deadline, after the announcement of the deadline, that is where they started to go to their offices, because they know now, I think it's 3 days now before the deadline. But what they said is that people must not panic. I think I also need to emphasize that people must not panic. It does not mean that on the 20th they won't be able to access funds. Even on the 21st, they can still apply for gold. For the migration from gold cards to black cards.
I suppose that's heartening, the fact that they can still go on to apply and start the process even beyond the 20th. Calvin, as always, thank you very much for the reportage. That's SABC News reporter Calvin Dludla there, just sharing with us what took place or what was stated at the briefing today by SASSA and Postbank.